Hello, third graders. We're going to continue with our reading from our Tales from the Odyssey, and we're on Chapter 8, Return of the Sun. While Odysseus had been making his way home to Ithaca, his son Telemachus had stayed on as a guest in the palace of the king and queen of Sparta. For many days, Telemachus had wondered what to do. One night, as he tossed restlessly in bed, the goddess Athena appeared in his chambers. Before Telemachus could speak, Athena gave him urgent advice. "Linger here no longer, Telemachus. Go home at once and protect your house. But beware, your mother's suitors plan to kill you. Right now they wait to ambush you in the strait between Ithaca and the island of Samos." "What should I do?" asked Telemachus. "Sail quickly through the passage, hugging neither shore," said Athena. "The gods will send a fair wind to speed your ship on to a safe port. When you land, send your crew to town. Then go alone to your father Swinehart, the man who tends his hogs. Send him to your mother to tell her of your safe return." Before Telemachus could ask more questions, Athena vanished from the room. Telemachus dressed hurriedly, then ran to King Menelaus' chambers. "My lord, I am sorry to take leave of you so soon, but I must set off for home immediately." The king hated to see the son of Odysseus leave Sparta, but he consented and ordered that a chariot be prepared for him. As Telemachus said farewell to King Menelaus and Queen Helen, a strange sight appeared in the sky. An eagle flew overhead. It clutched a great white goose in its talons. Men and women ran across the fields. They pointed at the weird sight and cried out in amazement and fear. "What omen is this?" someone shouted. "What can it mean?" Queen Helen calmly answered. "The gods have revealed to my heart the meaning of this sign," she said. "The eagle stands for Odysseus. The goose stands for his home. After he has traveled far and wide, Odysseus will return home to Ithaca and take his revenge." "May the gods make it so," said Telemachus. With that, the son of Odysseus snapped the reins of the horses and began his long journey home. Telemachus' chariot raced across the plains of Sparta, then on to the harbor of Pylos. There Telemachus found his crew and ship waiting for him. He quickly boarded the vessel and ordered his men to raise the sail. Athena sent a fair west wind to start them on their way. On their journey, Telemachus was careful to heed Athena's advice. He ordered his men not to sail close to either shore when they passed through the strait between Ithaca and the island of Samos. As the black ship sped safely toward his home, Telemachus remembered more words from the goddess. "When you land in Ithaca, send your crew to town. Then go alone to your father's swineherd, the man who tends his hogs." Just before they reached the port of Ithaca, Telemachus ordered his crew to strike their sail and row to land. When the ship was anchored, the crew went ashore and made a fire to cook their meat. After all his men had eaten their fill, Telemachus spoke to them. "Now row on to the city's port without me," he said. "I must travel alone and seek out my father's swineherd." Once the men had cast off and the ship was on its way, Telemachus laced his fine leather sandals and picked up his mighty bronze spear. With rapid steps he headed for the farmstead where the swineherd kept watch over the hogs. Chapter 9 is called Reunion. Morning was breaking over the swineherd's hut. The swineherd had built a fire and was preparing breakfast for himself and Odysseus. As he poured their wine, the dogs began yelping outside. "Your dogs sound happy. They do not snarl or growl," Odysseus said to the swineherd. "They must be greeting someone they know and trust." Before Odysseus could say more, a young man appeared in the doorway of the hut. The swineherd jumped up, dropping the cups of wine. He ran to the young man and tearfully kissed him. "Telemachus, my eyes' sweet light," the old man said. Odysseus gazed upon his son's handsome face. He was unable to move or speak. When he had last seen his beloved boy, Telemachus had been a baby. Now he was a young man with broad shoulders and a proud chest, reddish hair, and lively bright eyes. Indeed, he looked very like his father. Telemachus smiled at the swineherd. "You are a welcome sight to my eyes, too," he said. "Tell me first, how is my mother? What has happened to her since I left?" "Word came to her that you were in grave danger," said the swineherd. "She will be overjoyed to hear that you have found your way home alive. Come inside, eat and rest." As Telemachus drew near the hearth, Odysseus rose silently from his seat and offered it to his son. Telemachus shook his head. "Keep your seat, old man," he said. "Another will serve me as well." Odysseus nodded and took his place again. His face half hidden by the hood of his cloak, he continued to gaze with wonder upon the young man. The swineherd threw fresh logs on the fire and spread a fleece on the ground for Telemachus. Then he prepared meat from the previous night's meal and a basket of bread. He served honeyed wine in wooden cups. When the 3 men had finished their meal, Telemachus spoke softly to the swineherd. "Tell me, where does your guest come from?" he said. "What ship and what crew brought him here?" "He comes from Crete and has traveled over the world. I put him in your hands now. Offer him the hospitality of your father's house." Telemachus shook his head sadly. "How can I take a guest into our house when it is overrun by my mother's suitors? I can only offer him gifts. I will clothe him in a cloak and tunic and give him fine sandals and a sword and send him wherever he wants to go. But for now I will visit with him while you hurry to my mother and tell her of my safe return." The swineherd nodded and stood up. "Speak to her in secret," said Telemachus. "Let no one else know I am here." "I understand," said the swineherd. Then he took his leave of Telemachus and Odysseus and set off for the palace. After the swineherd had left, Odysseus saw a tall, fair woman appear in the doorway of the hut. Telemachus seemed not to take notice of her, but the dogs whimpered and cowered in fear. The woman beckoned to Odysseus. He quietly left the fire and stepped outside. He followed her to a stone wall. Facing the woman in the morning light, Odysseus saw that it was the goddess Athena. "Odysseus, it is time to tell your son the truth," the goddess said. "Then the 2 of you must plan your revenge on the suitors and make your way to town together. I will follow closely behind. I am ready for a fight." Athena touched Odysseus with her wand. Instantly the ragged garments fell away from his body, and he was clad in a fine tunic and cloak. He was taller and looked much younger. His face was bronzed, his cheeks full. He had dark hair and a dark beard. Athena had restored Odysseus to his strongest, most vital self. Before Odysseus could speak, the goddess vanished in the morning light. Odysseus returned to the hut. When Telemachus saw him, a look of wonder and fear came over his face. He could barely speak. "Stranger, you have changed," he stammered. "You must be a god from Mount Olympus. Spare me harm. Allow me to make a sacrifice to you." Odysseus spoke quietly. "I am no god, Telemachus," he said. "I am the one you have mourned for, the one for whom you have suffered great pain and injury. I am your father." The tears that Odysseus had long held back now streamed down his face, but Telemachus shook his head. "No, you cannot be my father. You are a demon casting a spell, or you are a god. You are an old man, and now you are young." "I am not an immortal," said Odysseus, "but I have been blessed by a goddess. After 20 years of wandering and torment, Athena has brought me home to Ithaca. She changed me into an old man, and now I am a young man once more. It is easy for the gods to cast a man down and then raise him up again." Hearing these words, Telemachus began to weep. He grabbed his father and hugged him, and the 2 sobbed together. Their cries were wild and piercing, like those of eagles whose young have been stolen from them. After 20 long years, father and son were finally reunited. Chapter 10 is a plan for revenge. Sitting together in the swineherd's hut, Odysseus and Telemachus asked many questions of each other. "What ship brought you here, father?" said Telemachus. "Where is your crew?" Odysseus told how King Alcinous had sent him home with the help of the best sailors in the world. "I slept all through the voyage," he said, "only to wake and find myself alone on shore, surrounded by gold and bronze treasure. With the help of Athena, I hid everything in the cave of the nymphs. Then Athena sent me here to find you. She wishes us now to plot revenge against our enemies. It may be hard for us to fight all of them," said Telemachus. "We are only 2, and they number 120. "I believe Athena will help us," said Odysseus, "as will her father Zeus. Do you think we will then be strong enough?" "With the help of Zeus and Athena, we will surely defeat our enemies," said Telemachus. "Tell me what we must do." "Tomorrow at daybreak you must go home alone," said Odysseus. "I will disguise myself as a beggar again and travel to the palace. Do not protest if the suitors abuse me when I arrive. Even if they shout names at me or throw things at me, do not speak a word in my favor." "When will we fight them?" asked Telemachus. "When Athena whispers to me that the time has come, I will nod to you. You must then take all the swords and spears and shields from the hall and hide them in an upstairs room." "What will I tell the others when they ask why I am doing this?" asked Telemachus. "Say that you are removing the weapons so they will not be harmed from the smoke of the fires. Leave weapons only for you and me, 2 swords, 2 spears, and 2 leather shields. And remember, my son, tell no one that you have seen me, not the swineherd, nor any of the servants, nor my old father, not even your mother." As the days wore on, Odysseus and Telemachus made further plans. Though Odysseus had finally returned to Ithaca, he knew he could still not rest. There was one more great battle to fight, but this one he would fight with his son. If you want to read the rest of this book, the last book in this book is called The Final Battle. You can check it out this summer at your library.